time for the man who taught Vince Carter how to slam.
You can't make this tough up.
The man whose three inspired the Curry family.
Pulls it up. The three.
I don't exaggerate, I congratulate.
With another masterpiece.
It's time for You Know Who, my man Sekou.
Goes airborne.
It's Sekou Smith's Hang Time Podcast. Take it away.
Welcome into this week's edition of the Hang Time Podcast. Sekou Smith, your host here in Atlanta. Got a great show lined up for you today. Going to talk to the man, the myth, the legend himself, Tim Hardaway, the author of The Killer Crossover. Going to visit with him, reflect on a few things about his career, talk about the current state of the NBA, his son obviously playing in the league as well. We're also going to talk to my main man, John Schuhmann. NBA power rankings are out. I'm going to dissect his rankings and ask him why he's got certain teams where they are seated in the power rankings. We'll do all that and more coming up on the Hang Time Podcast. But first off, let's get into it with our guest, Tim Hardaway.
Tim, when I talk about your crossover, yours was different because yours was in motion. Can you talk about the setup first of you coming so hard left or right and then the crossover?
Well, you know, in Chicago, I was taught coming down the court, full speed. Then you had to slow down and chop your steps and be under control to do a move like that. I come down and I never set nobody up. I used to come down the court and I used to say, look, I'm going to do an in and out behind the back move on this guy and see how that works. Well, I'm going to do an in and out crossover and see how that work and go left, see if he bites on it. That's what I used to do in college and at Pro-Am. And, it just worked for me. And then I, got into the NBA. You got to have various moves because everybody starts looking at your moves and trying to figure it out and trying to see when you're going to do it, when you're going to hesitate. But I just came down and just did it, at full speed. So you didn't know when I was going to do it. You just knew that it was going to come, but you just didn't know when it was going to come. That's the way we learned in Chicago how to just come down the court and make a play, full speed, under control, and make a basket or make a play for your teammates. That's what it was all about.
Perfect timing to have this guy on the podcast, Tim Hardaway Sr. You hear him there on the list on NBA TV. Tim, Chicago basketball was on my mind, thinking about what Anthony Davis had to say, being back home playing the Bulls last night, and also you being on the list earlier this week. What is the state of Chicago hoops right now when you hear AD talking about his hometown like that?
Man, I'm so happy that he said that. I love Brian Windhorst. I love what he does for the ESPN. He's a great reporter and everything like that. But, you never been to Chicago. You never seen the mecca of Chicago basketball. And when he said that, when Anthony Davis said that, I've been thinking like that my whole career since I've been in high school. What makes, everybody say New York is the mecca? What makes everybody say somewhere else is the mecca? We had a lot of great basketball players come out of Chicago, Cassie Russell, Isaiah Thomas, Mark Aguirre, Terry Cummins, the list go on and on and on. And, I think we are the mecca of basketball, of greatness, and it's proven how we come in the league and our play shows. So when he said that, I was so happy and that he said that. And, I think everybody from Chicago that played in the NBA understands what he's talking about. And we are probably the mecca of basketball. I think we are the mecca of basketball in the NBA, no question.
Yeah, that fraternity, we see the love Isaiah gives Derrick Rose and all the lineage of players that have come through the city. Is that a pride thing once you get to the league? Guys always I know in recent years we've had guys going back and playing in their hometowns. But is that something that's always been there, that representing where you're from when you're in the league going back to your playing days?
No question. No question. That's a pride thing. When you're in the NBA, you come back, You see all the guys that's been in the NBA before you. You see the guys, the young guys that are making their way into the NBA after you. And, every time you see somebody like Patrick Beverly come in and play as hard as he played, Nunley from that's at with the Heat, man, he's a Chicago product. And only thing we do, we go out there and we prove ourselves day in and day out to show people that we are, mecca of basketball. And that's what we do. Derrick Rose. Look at Derrick Rose. He's coming back. He's put everything behind him. He's coming back playing very well. Patrick Beverly. He's just a proven basketball player. He's a gym rat. He just love to work out. He just love to grind. Nunley. He's just another grinder out there, and he's with the perfect system with the Miami Heat. Everybody say that Zoe is the reason why the Miami Heat is the culture and everything. It's not because of Zoe. It's because of Tim Hardaway, Alonzo Mourning, P.J. Brown, Ike Austin, Jamal Bassberg, Sean Leonard, Dan Marley. All of us started that culture, and all of us knew what it took to win, and we believed in Pat Riley because he was a great coach and he was a great innovator. And when they say that Alonzo Mourning started this culture, no, really it was really Keith Askins that started the culture, and we followed them. So that's how it built up to be the way it is today.
Yeah. Do you look around the league now? And you need distance a lot of times on a career to evaluate maybe how it's evolved and how it's changed through the course of time. What's the biggest difference you think in the league now compared to when you played? Is it the style, the pace and the space, or is there something else that's different in this era about the league than what it was when you played?
Well, the rules are different. The rules was totally different when we played. It was zone defense. You had to be above the free throw line. You couldn't step below the free throw line if your man was above 3-point line. It's a lot of variables in the game today that wasn't in the game then. You could play zone. You could actually play a zone in the NBA today. Back then, you couldn't play a zone in the NBA. You had to be arm length to your guy, or you had to go and double team the guy that had the ball. You couldn't go double team a guy that didn't have the ball. You had to double team the guy that had the ball, or it was called illegal defense. And the game just spread out. It's spread out. It's it's more about analytics now, and I agree with Isaiah now. A lot of guys are throwing the analytics away, and they saying, look, I just got to go out here and play basketball. I just got to go out here and make shots. Forget about the three ball. Forget about layups. If I get an open space right here in this pocket for the 15-foot of mid-range, I'm shooting that. My percentage going to be high. You can believe me, before all the analytics came out, and three-pointers, people shooting 30, 40, 50, 60 three-pointers a game, it was called a game of short range. And there's a lot of people that made 50, 30, 25 points a game just shooting mid-range jump shots, a la Bernard King, a la Karl Malone, a la Adrian Dantley. So even Michael Jordan, then he had to expand his to three-point land, but he really wasn't shooting threes. So, the analytics are the analytics, but you still got to go out there and play basketball, and you got to go out there and play the right way, and you got to know how to feel for the game. And if you go in there and shoot the shot that you're supposed to shoot and make those shots, you can win games shooting mid-range jump shots. And I totally believe that. And that's where the game, I think, is coming back around now, and people starting to realize you just got to play the game. Forget about threes. Forget about, layups. Let's just play the game, and let's make shots where the shots present itself.
Yeah. It's funny, you talk about, the way the analytics have adjusted the game. You and Isaiah and certainly other players from Chicago, there's kind of this lineage of guard play, being grimy on both ends of the floor, That goes back from the historical perspective to today's Chicago guards. You mentioned Patrick Beverly representing for Chicago, and everybody talks about him picking up, 94 feet and the way he guards, the way he defends. What is it about Chicago basketball, be it at the high school level, at the park, at the rec centers? What is it about that style that makes it so specific to Chicago?
It's all the I wouldn't call it hating. I would call it like it's a lot of constructive criticism and a lot of smack talking and saying that, you got to come out here and prove yourself. You got to come out here and prove that you're worthy with playing with us. When I say that, you got to come out here and play with a lot of confidence. You can't back down. You got to make the tough pass. You can't call fouls. You got to fight through plays. You got to fight through plays and fouling to make a play for your teammates for the game-winning shot. You got to play strong. And being little, it's a lot of doubters out there. You little. You can't get to the rim. You're not going to be able to shoot over people. You got to move your feet. You can't pick up people 94 feet. You always got to prove people wrong in Chicago, and that's what builds your confidence level up. When you start showing people that you can do what they say that you can't do, then your confidence start building up, and you saying, you know what, I can do everything that they saying I can't do and even more. And I'm going to take my game to another level by shooting the ball and making plays at the rim and giving my team confidence each and every day to go out there and win. And, that's where the confidence comes from in Chicago. It's, it used to be people hating on people or telling or bashing them down, but we used to take that as criticism and show that we was better than that, and show people that we was tougher than that, and show people that we can do what they say that we can do, and take it to the next level too.
Yeah, I know that you had the crossover dribble as a signature part of your game, and I'll be honest, I don't remember if there was a crossover dribble in the game before that. That's the first time I ever consciously remember hearing about it, seeing it, realizing that was that was going to be a component of people's games. Now it's become this thing where it's a flash dribble, like people do it for flashy purposes. But when you started doing it, was that the mechanism to be the defender? It wasn't about that flashy and one mixtape stuff, but more about, hey, this is my way of breaking my defender down and getting to my spots.
Yes. When we in Chicago, it's all about in the box, straight line to the basket, not, deterring and trying to go wide. Because if you go straight line to the basket, you got to understand that you go through two or three people and make a play. When I did the move, it was getting to the basket. It wasn't. I think if you dribble, and you try to shake, that brings out too much energy. I didn't like to bring out too much energy. I didn't like to waste too much energy. I like to have that energy for another burst of speed somewhere else. But you dribble, you fake this guy, you cross him over, and then you bring it back for another crossover. That's too much energy being wasted. And I wasn't a type of guy that wanted to waste energy. I just come down and I'm going to do a move on you, in and out crossover or between the legs crossover, whatever crossover that I may use to get open, to get free, to make a play. I was going to use that in my repertoire. And today's guys, I think some guys, they over dribble. They do over dribble.
Yeah.
And, I think that they have a straight line to the rim at times, but they bring it back because it's about the analytics. They want to make sure they get all the way to the rim, or they want to make sure they shoot a three. We should do a crossover and stop and pop at the free throw line or the elbow or the mid-range jump shot. Whatever was free, because back then, you had 7-footers and a flagrant foul. Now you get kicked out. It used to be flagrant fouls all the time in the 90s, and it was just a regular common foul if they called that a foul. So We understood where to stop and pop. We understood the angles. We understood when we was free, that was our time to shoot that little pocket jump shot and make that jump shot.
Yeah, it's weird too. You start looking at a guy's career, and I know the further you get away from the days you played to when you're looking at it retroactively, you say, all right, where do I fit in the game? Where's my place in the game? I'm gonna be honest with you. I'd assumed you were in the Hall of Fame without even really thinking about it and looking hard at it. 5-time All-Star, 5 times All-NBA, gold medal Sydney Olympics. If somebody just held that up to me, I would assume that player was already in the Hall of Fame. Do you look at it now with a son in the league, years removed from playing? Do you look at it now and wonder what's the evaluation of your place in the game and where you fit?
Well, I fit right up there with the greats, I think. I'm not gonna hold my tongue. I fit right up there with the greats. I done a lot for this game. I helped this game grow, just like I think all the other ball players and all the other Hall of Famers and the players today, helping this game grow. And and it's just satisfactory that my son is in the NBA and loving basketball the way I love basketball, and I love watching him play. And it's just gratifying to see him out there doing what he loved to do, doing what I love to do, and I was doing what my dad loved to do, and go out there and play and compete and have fun and just go out there and just do what it's supposed to take for you to win games for your team. That's what it's all about. And talking smack a little bit, like you can never beat us, or y'all having a rough day today, we taking on, we done beat all y'all. What team y'all gonna get now to beat us, and stuff like that. So it's just gratifying, and I just leave that other stuff, the Hall of Fame and all that stuff, to them people that that does it. I don't have no inclination of who does it. I don't know who does it or when it's gonna happen or whatever. But you know what? The gratification is, when people talk to you and say, you was a bad man. You did a lot for this game. I love your crossover. I tried your crossover. The crossover never did me well, but I used to try it. You brought an innovation to the game. And, the thing is when you go to the pre-draft camp in Chicago, and I'm sitting there, they say, all right, now we're going to do the crossover. All right, they there doing my crossover at the pre-draft camp, and that's what's gratifying right there.
Yeah, no doubt. When you look back at your career, when were you having the most fun just playing the game? Everything else aside, whatever off the court is off the court, but just when did you feel like you were at your best and having your most fun during your career?
I'm going to tell you this, man. I had the best of both worlds, all right? I played with Chris Mullin and Mitch Richmond, for Don Nelson, Run TMC in the early 90s, 89, 90, 91, 92. We just wasn't together long enough. And, man, that was one of the best 2.5 years that I ever had playing, at that particular time. And then when I got traded to Miami Heat, February 95, I was my first game was against Philadelphia 76ers, and then at that time I wasn't getting that much run with the Warriors, and I was not in really good shape. So my first inclination was, man, I got to run up and down and chase Allen Iverson, man. I'm gonna be dog tired after the game. But when I went there and started playing for Pat Riley and had a teammate like Alonzo Mourning, and what we did there, because we was like 15 games out of 8 spot. all right, when he traded for us, the Heat was out 15 games out of 8th spot, and Pat Riley's consecutive years of going to the playoffs was in jeopardy. And when he traded for Gatlin, myself, Walt Williams, and a couple other guys, and we got there, and the way we played and how we played, man, we had so much fun. Even though we practiced and did what we needed to do in practice, man, we from 95 to 2001 with Pat Riley and the Miami Heat, that was another best 6 years of my career where I just had fun, and it was intense each and every day, and it was preparedness each and every day, and it was all about business. And that's what I love about the Miami Heat way. It's all about business. You got to be prepared. And if you love to play, you're going to excel. If you don't love to play, that's not a place where you need to go. If you want a country club, go somewhere else. But it's all about business with Pat Riley and the Miami Heat, and I love that each and every day, and that's why we excel. So I still miss those days today because we had a lot of fun. That group had a lot of fun, and we didn't make it to where we wanted to make it to, but we started that culture the way it is today.
Yeah, no question. What's the most difficult part that you see now about the game in terms of the wisdom you share with younger players? Like we talked about, you got a son in the league. He had to come to you at some point, you know what I mean, to glean some of the wisdom that you provided. But what's the most difficult part about it, you think, now for young players? Everybody's got a trainer now. Everybody's got a skills coach that works with them from the time they're 8 years old all the way up. Like, what part of the basketball infrastructure you think is most challenging for young players now?
Mental preparedness. We had a mental type of way about us that we mentally prepared for games. We understood what to take away from ball players. We understood what ball players like to do, what ball players didn't like to do. We understood, what we need to do as a team to stop a team at this particular time of the game and what they wanted to run. And we understood when to tighten up the clamps on defense and make a push to win a basketball game. So I think it's mental preparedness, and guys are they not mentally engaged in games at times. They looking all over the place. That's why sometimes after timeouts, guys don't know what they running because they're not looking at what the coach is writing. So is diagramming for that play, for that out of bounds play. So that's why coaches be upset. So it's all about mentally being prepared, going out there, and mentally knowing how to stroke that ball too. A lot of guys are not locked in to the game and not locked in to shooting and locked in to making shots. I think that's what the game is missing today. And Borland said it. The Chicago Bulls said it. The coach said it. He said, our guys are not mentally prepared. Our guys are not mentally into the game. They physically into the game, but mentally they got to get into the game to put us over that hump. Last night was a good test for them against the L.A. Lakers, but they didn't finish it. Now they got to understand how to finish the mental part, the mental toughness of winning games.
So, Tim, I know everybody talks about, and I hear this all the time, watching games, hearing other analysts talk about it. There's, who's got the best handle game? Well, Kyrie is the best I've seen ever, the best of all time. And I always say to myself, man, we got to have a longer memory when we evaluate this league. We can't be such prisoners of the moment. And I think about ball handlers over the course of generations where a dynamic dribble wasn't as big a deal maybe in the 1950s as it was as the game has evolved. I know you have the dream dribble that you got going on. So talk to me a little bit about that and what the genesis of that was.
Well, these guys came to me about a year ago. about a year and a half ago, and they were saying, we want to talk to you about something. I said, what is it you want to talk to me about? And they showed it to me. And the first thing I thought about was, man, this would be great for kids in the house. Kids, they always on their computer or on their phone or on the iBox or Xbox or whatever, and they need to be working on their fundamentals. Fundamentals of basketball is knowing how to dribble the correct way and having confidence that the ball is going to come back to you. You could dribble short, you could dribble high, you could dribble medium, but you got to understand that the ball is going to come back to you, and these kids are not getting enough repetition. All right, you go to camps, okay? You have a camp here, but every time you go to a camp, it's 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there, then you got to move on to another station. Then you got to move on to another station. Then you got to move on to another station. It's a lot of kids that need more time with dribbling. Like they need more time with shooting. Like they need more time with layups, left hand and right hand layups. So the device is a Dream silencer by Dream Dribble. It doesn't make any noise at home. It's on like it's not on carpet. It's like dribbling on a trampoline. Okay, and it makes you dribble the ball with muscle memory. Makes you dribble the ball, understanding how to with repetition. With the right hand and the left hand, back and forth, 2-ball dribbling. And you can do it in the house because it's about to be wintertime. And a lot of these kids, after they come from, working out or practicing, they want to practice some more. They want to work on their handle some more. So when you're watching NBA basketball, if you're watching college basketball, you bring this device out from up under your bed, okay, unfold it, from up under your bed or out of your closet, and just start dribbling on it and start working on your repetition, muscle memory, and your moves, in and out moves, crossover moves, behind the back, between the legs, and 2-ball dribbling. It's a lot of ways because just think, a lot of these kids start dribbling the ball without moving up and back, up and back, up and back. So this is a great way to help them get their repetition of dribbling the ball and understanding how to, with their muscle memory and dribbling the basketball. So I think it's a great idea, and all kids should have it at home and just working on their dribbling skills.
Yeah, I think it's such a different era now, where kids aren't playing outside at the park in the way that they used to, but they're doing a lot more controlled basketball training, stuff that's more specific. And
right.
And you're right. That's probably something that's got to be a focus for a lot of these young kids playing, man. It's good to talk to you, man, and just hear, not only what you got going on now, but your perspective on the league and your career as well, man. And I'm scratching my head here thinking, how's this guy not in the Hall of Fame? We're going to have another conversation about that when it comes up, when you do get in there and we get to that moment in Springfield.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. And thank you for having me on. And, like I said, I got a lot of great insight on this game. And I know the game in and out. And I help a lot of kids, and trying to understand, what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it in this game. So I'm always glad to talk about it. Thanks for having me on, though.
No doubt, Tim. Appreciate you, man. Take care.
You too.
You got to love talking to a legend of the game like Tim Hardaway. Always interesting, the perspective, the conversation. Appreciate him taking his time. Now to my favorite cat on the planet, John Schuhmann, NBA.com, the master of the power rankings. My favorite Twitter clapback person on planet Earth. Shu, what's up, man?
Well, what is happening?
Oh, man. Late nights. Watching games, and we're back in the thick of it, man. And I'm back in the thick of the power rankings every Monday, diving in, checking out your work. I know how hard you grind on this thing and how much you put into it. I got to give you some love. The Lakers climbed up to number 3 this week. Not surprising. Dwight Howard playing out of his mind. Is this real? This is real what we're seeing from the Lakers?
You know what? You got to like that it's been starting on the defensive end, because you figure like the offense will come eventually, especially with Kuzma just getting back and coming off the bench and not necessarily playing alongside LeBron very much just yet. But the fact that they're winning with defense, number one defense in the league through until last night. I think they're number 2 right now after the comeback win in Chicago. But the fact that they're winning with defense, they're playing big. I mean, that's the biggest surprise to me, is that, you'd figure, we all thought, Anthony Davis is going to have to play center, right? Especially down the stretch of close games. But they had 2 close games in Texas over the weekend, and down the stretch, it was LeBron at the 3, Anthony Davis at the 4, and Dwight Howard, of all people, at the 5, and it was working, and their defensive numbers have been fantastic with Davis and Howard on the floor together, and it makes up sort of for them being a little bit mediocre offensively.
I know a couple of years ago we were all convinced that the big man was, going away at a dinosaur. There just would not be a place for a traditional low post center in the NBA. But is Dwight kind of dispelling that notion that you can still play that role? Maybe not a 35-minute-a-night guy playing that spot, but certainly an impact role on a team as a traditional rim-protecting, rim-rolling big man.
Yeah, I think definitely not for as many minutes as he dominated back in the good years with Orlando. And even you can't just play big that much, I don't think, especially when it comes to the playoffs and there's and non-shooters get ignored and you got to worry about spacing a little bit more. But the most important shots in the game are still those at the basket. The most efficient way to score is at the basket and at the line. And if you've got, and size matters in that regard, if you've got big guys that can protect the paint defensively, teams are shooting, less than 50% in the paint when Davis and Howard are on the floor together, and that's huge. That makes a huge difference. And then it helps on the glass, obviously both ends of the floor, offensive rebounding, defensive rebounding. Extra possessions like that are so critical. And so, yes, you can win certain games and certain portions of games playing big. Some opponents I think are going to give them trouble if they're playing big, faster teams that maybe play 5 out. I think that's why Chicago gave them a little bit of trouble, obviously through the first 3 quarters on Tuesday. But there's a place for size, I think, still in this league. It doesn't have as big of a place as it did 5-10 years ago, but it still has a place.
For as much love as I give you for shining that light on the Lakers going into this week, what's your problem with the Phoenix Suns? Like, why can Devin Booker and his crew not get more love in power rankings? I think they should be higher than 12.
They continue to move up. Obviously they had yet to beat the Sixers when Monday's ranking came out, and basically, they had a win over the Clippers, which is obviously a good one, but then their other wins were over Sacramento, Golden State, and Memphis, who are basically 3 of the 5 worst teams in the league so far. And so, quality wins matter, road wins matter, but obviously the Philly win is huge. You've got to love the toughness that guys like Baines and Javon Carter have added to this team, the competence that the guys that they've added provide, just to have a more competent and experienced rotation matters quite a bit. Obviously, Monty Williams deserves a lot of credit. And then Devin Booker is still doing his thing. I think, there's a lot of debate about him in previous years about, if he's just empty stats or whatever it is. For me, I don't look at, whether his team is winning as much. Maybe like when you look at a scorer like that, you care about efficiency. And so far his efficiency is up quite a bit. this season, even though he's not getting to the line. It's interesting. I was looking a little bit closer at him this morning. He's not getting to the line as much as he has in the past, but he is shooting in the paint more, and he's shooting better in the paint. Like more than half of his field goal attempts have come in the paint, which is a little bit surprising when you think of Devin Booker. So he is getting to the basket more than he has in the past. His three-point numbers are a little bit unsustainable, but so far so good. And Phoenix is legit. Like, I mean, there are teams that have gone off to good starts of 3 weeks, around this range. We saw even Memphis last year was off to a good start, and then or maybe it was 2 years ago, we're off to a really good start, and they just sort of fell apart. Yeah, the Kings were at this same sort of stage at this time last year. But with every passing game and every quality win, they look more and more legit. And even if they are last year's Kings, right, like that, improved quite a bit, but still fell short of the playoffs. Like, that's a huge step forward for this franchise. Obviously, like, I thought last year's Kings was a good thing for Sacramento, considering they hadn't made the playoffs in 13, 14 years. If they are, if the Suns are, not in the bottom 10 on either end of the floor by the end of at the end of the season, right now they're top 10 in both ends, which is pretty remarkable. But even if they're just decent, on both ends of the floor, when it comes to the full season, that's a huge, huge step forward.
So I'm going to have to scroll down to the bottom every week now to look at the Warriors, which is a strange feeling, Shu, after 5 years of them being at or near the top every week on the power rankings. We knew it was going to be rough when you lose KD and Sean Livingston retires and Klay Thompson is out and Andre Iguodala is traded. Like, we knew it was going to be a rough year. Then they have all of the issues that, get compounded onto that to start this season. I'm not going to believe that Eric Pascal can be the savior of Warriors basketball this season. That pop
he's going to be in
the
scouting report.
He
now.
goes off.
He's going to be in the scouting report now, and so it'll be interesting to see how things go now that he's going to be near the top of the scouting report going forward.
Yeah, this is just but what a brutal reality it is for a team and a franchise that's been as good as they've been the past 5 years. Like, how do you evaluate them knowing all that they've lost within the context of what they're dealing with, and then you look at this team's performance this season? They shouldn't be any better than this, should they?
No. And give them credit for an impressive win in over Portland the other night. But I guess the good news is that Klay Thompson, Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, come this time next year are going to be fresher than they've ever been, or as fresh as they've been in the last 5 years. Although a torn ACL is not something to just think, oh, great, he gets a year, he gets a year off and he'll be fine going forward. No, like, that's obviously a major injury, but the hand and finger injuries obviously are easy to sort of deal with long term. The bad news, I think, is that you're not getting the time to see a Curry and D'Angelo Russell backcourt, and the time to see if those two guys can coexist, and if that's sustainable going forward. If you want to keep Russell going forward, if he's more of a trade asset in your mind if you're Golden State. The good news is, all the other good news, you got time. Now, obviously the summer wiped them out as far as depth, and so now you have 82 games to play all these young guys, a bunch of guys that are just 22 years old, and determine which of them is going to be a rotation player next year. There's no having to force anybody minutes because the minutes are there.
Yeah, you always have a good breakdown before we even get into the rankings of teams to watch and what to look out for coming up. And I love the East-West update every week. That's something that at least you can keep an eyeball on. But I'm looking at a Miami team, Shu, that I want to believe is legit. But are we going to find out for sure in these next few weeks exactly what they're capable of with the schedule they have and kind of where they're going?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, you could look at that big win over Houston at home on Sunday as, okay, Houston had a Saturday night in Miami, obviously, and then the previous two wins were with Jimmy Butler were over Atlanta with Trae Young sort of getting hurt in the first of those two games and not playing the second. But they do have a big, a comeback win over Milwaukee. And so, I think we take them seriously and we see the potential there just because they are a deep and relatively talented team in the Eastern Conference. But, yeah, this trip is going to tell us a lot. They already lost in Denver by 20 points. They play at Phoenix Thursday, at the Lakers on Friday. And so there's a Philly game coming right before Thanksgiving. So, it'll be fascinating to see. It is with the whole league. Like, I don't think there's anybody that we know who they are right now, after 3 weeks. Excuse the construction noise in the background. So I think, we gotta, with everybody, every game is a data point in the words of the man Sam Hinkie. And it's just, let's just absorb a couple more weeks before we make serious judgments about this team. But obviously Miami off to a 5-2 start is promising. And, you can put them sort of in that mix for the 3, 4, 5 seeds in the Eastern Conference.
Mm-hmm. Since you are the father of the League Pass Alert, who has caught your eye so far on League Pass? Who's been that team, under the radar team you've been watching that might not be on the TNT games or might not make, the Wednesday night doubleheader on ESPN, but has piqued your interest?
Well, Phoenix for one, obviously. And then that's a good question. Beyond that, I think Dallas is fun. Luka Doncic is obviously a heck of a player, seems to have taken a step forward. Porzingis is off to a little bit of a slow start shooting-wise, but his ability to just launch from, 28 feet at his height is just kind of amazing. And I just like a lot of players on that roster. We've talked about, I think earlier this year, I like Jalen Brunson a lot. Like, I just like the way that guy plays. Just seems like a really competent backup guard, especially just, starting his second year in the league. He's fun to watch. And, beyond that, Memphis has some fun with Ja Morant, although they are obviously on the bottom end of the standings right now. And then we await the return of Zion as far as League Pass is concerned.
Yeah, I don't know. The more days we spend without Zion, the weirder it is for me. I feel like he's gonna have such an uphill climb in the Rookie of the Year chase that it's almost going to be like he puts himself out of contention by missing this much time early on. And a guy like Ja Morant and some of these other guys playing as well as they have. I don't know if I'm convinced either. And you mentioned Porzingis. I was watching that Lakers Mavericks game on a giant screen. I was on Game Time earlier that night, and then I left and I went and was having dinner with my wife and a bunch of her friends for her birthday. And I don't know why they picked to play Shoe with a 300-foot screen TV in the basketball game. I was the worst late arriving party guest in the history of party guests. But I was watching Porzingis and AD match up, and I texted you, and I meant it. That, to me, that would be one of the more intriguing playoff matchups, if only because we get to see LeBron and Doncic matchup and AD and Porzingis matchup, which you look at the physical matchups and you think, well, who could limit AD? Who could bother him offensively or make him, have to play in uncomfortable spaces? Porzingis is one of the few guys with the length to do that. And And the same goes for LeBron and Doncic. Are you looking at some of these early season crumbs from these teams that may or may not get into the playoff mix and thinking about that, just about what would be the difficulty of dealing with these guys who haven't been in the playoffs? We haven't seen them in a playoff atmosphere. What would be the difficult thing for teams to deal with them if they were to get in? I think about that in relation to a team like the Bucks, and that's how I was looking at them early last season when Giannis was going off. Just like, man, what would be their playoff structure that could cause people some problems?
Yeah, the other thing with Dallas, though, is that their bench is still really good. Like, it's been the case for the last 2 years, basically. Their bench has been really, really good, and I still think it is. But depth is less of a factor in the playoffs with them. And even though they have these two talented guys to make their starting lineup better, they're still getting outscored with Doncic and Porzingis on the floor. So I feel like they can be a really good regular season team with their depth. I worry about them a little bit in the playoffs, and I think the point you made, like matching up with the Lakers, would be difficult for them. Although that was a fantastic game the other night, and I just think, even with a lot of these Western Conference teams, you have to look at, all right, who is their big wing that can guard LeBron, who can guard Kawhi Leonard, who can guard James Harden. And we saw it with the Spurs the other day. You know, they lost to both the Clippers and the Lakers, and they didn't really have the defender as good as they are to match up with those guys. They have two great backcourt defenders in Murray and White. But there was a late game possession against the Clippers where Kawhi Leonard got the ball at the elbow, basically, and Derek White was guarding him. And the Spurs immediately sent a second defender, and then he passed it to Montrezl Harrell, who got an and one under the basket. And it just made you think, well, they don't have somebody to guard him one-on-one. And then you just got to basically look up and down the standings and say, okay, who's going to guard Kawhi Leonard in a playoff series or LeBron in a playoff series? And it makes you wonder, all right, where is Andre Iguodala going to be come March 1st or February 15th or whatever is after the trade deadline? And maybe it's a good thing that he's getting some time off to rest up his old legs and make sure that he's ready to go for whatever team he's playing for come March and April.
Yeah, it makes us just some fascinating watches early in the year. And I found myself watching, strangely, you watch games early in the season, Shu, and they're usually not as intense as some of these games. It seems like the Lakers have played that, they played 7 games or whatever, but like 3 or 4 of them have been played at a playoff pitch to me almost, which is kind of strange this early in the season. I don't know if it's them trying to find their measure and really see what they're made of and see where they,
They need to do that, though. I think you got to. You can't just cruise through the regular season when you have an unknown, a brand new roster, basically. I mean, it's not totally brand new, but like there's so many, the crux of who they are is totally different than it was a year ago. You can't just, LeBron in his last years in Cleveland was able to cruise through the regular season and know that he'll be, know what he can do, especially against the Eastern Conference in the playoffs. This is a totally different story. They can't sort of just cruise. They've got to figure out who they are, and the best way to do that is to actually play games with like they're important. I'm glad to see that, and I think a lot of teams have to do that because there's just been so much player movement over the summer that every team is brand new. I mean, even the Bucks as much as they brought back, they still lost a key part of their rotation, and so everybody is brand new basically except for the Nuggets, and Denver still has to sort of reestablish itself as the team it wants to be.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting. Just curious to see how this stuff works itself out in the coming weeks, and I always say I poke my head up at Christmas to take a hard look at the league and see where everybody stands. I'll be curious to see where teams like Phoenix and some of these other teams having kind of these upstart, moments here early on, if they're still doing that by then or if we settle into a kind of a different vibe by then. Appreciate you, man, as always. Thanks for taking the time, but also thanks for responding to my foolish texts late at night during games. Not everybody would do that, so appreciate you.
You only get me late at night every once in a while. I have sort of punted on some late night games to watch them the following morning quite a bit already this season. So, but you've got to watch them at some point. But yes, the late games are less of a priority for me than they have been in the past. Maybe I'm just getting old.
Yeah, hey, aren't we all? Appreciate it. John Schuhmann, NBA.com, joining us here on the Hang Time Podcast. I'll talk to you, Shu.
All righty.
As always, we got to give thanks to our guests for taking the time out. Tim Hardaway Sr., I guess we should call him, with Tim Hardaway Jr. playing in the league for the Dallas Mavericks. Appreciate him taking some time out of his schedule to come on and join us. As always, my main man, John Schuhmann, breaking it down for us, bringing the knowledge. Check out his power rankings and everything else on NBA.com. The Kia Race to the MVP ladder kicks off for the first time this week as well. Check that out Fridays on NBA.com. And for everybody here at the Hang Time Podcast, Sekou Smith, we'll see you right here next week on the Hang Time Podcast.
Thanks for listening to Sekou Smith's Hang Time Podcast. Be sure to check out previous episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, NBA.com/hangtime, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, Hoops fans.